I fired a client that would give me $3,500 a month consistently, and I couldn't be happier. And in this video, you're gonna learn how I got to the point in which I can let go of an income source like this and not even bat an eye. But also what I learned about myself that keeps me free of worry running a one-person business. And I'm gonna go deep and almost philosophical. And if you can adopt this perspective, I can promise you that you're gonna be 100 times better off. My name is Trejo, and I run a one-person marketing agency that makes anywhere from 10 to 15K months. And look, $3,500 a month is someone's full paycheck. It's a whole living. It's not by any means a small amount of money to not have coming in every single month. But when that money was coming in, I was more stressed, I was more anxious, and to paint you the full picture, sometimes I didn't even want to go into the client's office to collect the paycheck. It was that bad. It was that client that most business owners know. And if you've ever run any sort of business, you know which ones I'm talking about. Or if you ever want to run a business in the future, beware, because not everyone is as nice as you think. So what I would do for this client essentially is I was in charge of their social media content, their presence online, running their ads, making sure that their business was in front of the right people. And I would even run some Google ads so that they could get some calls into their business. But this situation got overwhelming kind of fast. And I'm not talking about actually doing the work. The work was great. They loved it. They approved it. It looked and sounded amazing. But just when everything seemed to be working, there was still always something to worry about week to week or month to month, because there was always something new to complain about. For example, somebody else's opinion about my work that was completely outside of their business, and I had to deal with that. And it got so bad that at some point I would even get brain fog just thinking about their content and producing the work that I was hired to do for them. But the actual problem was I just didn't know how to say, hey, let's not work together anymore. Eventually, they freaked out about something that happened outside of the business that had nothing to do with me, and they wanted to completely stop production effective immediately. To which I was honestly relieved. So the title of this video is a little bit misleading. I didn't actually fire them myself, but otherwise you wouldn't have clicked. But I digress. Look, there's an underlying lesson to be learned here, and it actually changed how I would work with clients forever. And it's gonna serve you whether you're already running a business or wanna run one in the near future, or even if you wanna be any sort of freelancer. And that lesson is the following: the amount of energy that you spend with a headache client is better allocated to other clients or even personal projects that don't even bring in money yet. So for example, in my case, the amount of energy that this headache would take from me was better allocated in other clients that would give me the same amount of money or more. Other clients who actually valued my work and would trust me for what they actually hired me for, instead of micromanaging everything. Or even this, YouTube, that's not even monetized yet. At some point, you gotta ask yourself if you can be more effective and productive with the same amount of energy elsewhere. Somewhere where your work is better appreciated. Somewhere where you actually enjoy because the energy is just better. But look, I was only able to develop this perspective after almost 10 years of doing this on repeat over and over again, working with all kinds of people from different backgrounds and different incomes. And so you are about to learn this concept that took me almost a decade to learn. Had I known and internalized this concept from the very beginning, it would have made my life so much easier, because I would not have been trying to work out of fear. But what do I mean with working out of fear? Well, it's simple. If you've ever had a client that treats you like an employee, then you know what I'm talking about. But it's this urgency that you feel towards caving to every single demand that they have, even when you have a contract in place stating everything that you will and will not do. And even then, some people can be entitled enough to make you feel bad for not providing other things outside of your scope of work. But that's okay. And that has nothing to do with you as a person or even as a company. But here's the catch. It is up to you to put boundaries. Because sure, you could do just one more thing that takes a couple of hours to do for one client. That's fine. And it's even needed if you're just starting. But what about when you're handling 5 or 10 clients? If you haven't learned the lesson yet, you're just digging yourself deeper and deeper into a hole. But I digress. What is this concept that I'm actually talking about that took me a whole decade to learn? Well, it's actually very simple, but saying it is just the tip of the iceberg. And the answer is confidence. Confidence in my work. Confidence in what I can provide for a business. The confidence that the type of work that I can do and backed up by my portfolio can quite literally change a business or the business owner's life. But also the confidence to set boundaries. Confidence to realize that sometimes the client is treating you like shit and that you should walk away, and actually walking away from the client. But unfortunately for you, if you're just starting, this only develops through repetition. Closing project after project, meeting new people, getting to know different people from different business backgrounds, and actually getting better at your craft. But you can learn the fundamentals from other people's experiences. For example, you right now that you're listening to this. But here's the thing. This concept is much bigger, much, much deeper. It doesn't just stop at mere confidence. I mean, that's all well and good, but the switch that this kind of confidence then sparks, it develops into a broader and much deeper perspective about yourself. And I think that if you're Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you're going to resonate with this more because the generation above me actually has a hard time wrapping their head around this. And it's just this concept that if you're not happy with where you are able to replace your income stream with something else. You don't need to stick around and you don't need anybody's permission to leave. The freedom that you have in today's world and the opportunities that are available are literally endless. You can figure out new ways to earn money, or you can figure out a way to get a new client. I did it. I just watched a ton of hours of how-to videos here on YouTube, and then I just applied what I learned and got better along the way. You can figure out a way to completely replace your income stream, whether that's a job that you have or a side hustle that you want to start. You can make money in other ways because, for example, there are people here on YouTube making so much money doing something that you already know how to do. There's so many people banking on TikTok Shop for doing things that probably you can do better. And just allowing yourself to have this perspective gives you so much freedom. But I also understand that it can be very, very hard. It's all cool to sit here and watch this video and think about the confidence that you wish you had and get inspired for like 10 minutes, and then suddenly, what happened? The inspiration just leaves, the motivation fades away, and suddenly, once again, you do nothing. But why is it that we do that? We hype up an idea in our head, we plan it perfectly, we can see the big picture, and then we just can't seem to put it into practice. Well, I'll tell you why that happens and how to get rid of that, at least what I believe and what works for me. And look, I'm not claiming to be any sort of psychologist or psychiatrist, so take this with a grain of salt. But I believe it all comes from deep-rooted beliefs that we all have. After all, they say that around 90 to 95% of your actions and choices are dictated by your subconscious. That's the part of your mind that's in the background, so to speak. The part of your mind that stores your memories and beliefs. The part of your mind that you're not fully aware of. And so now, to give you an example of why is it that we get motivated for a bit and then do nothing, think about this. All of our life, we are taught to go the safe route, right? And that is to go to college, get a degree, then use that degree to get a great entry-level job that allows you to go up the corporate ladder. And then hopefully after a decade, you can be a manager. Hopefully after a decade, you can have a better salary. But God forbid that you get sick for a week, otherwise you're in trouble. You're taught this since you're a kid, by your parents, by your teachers, by your older siblings and their friends. And look, there's nothing wrong with doing things that way. But if something doesn't quite sit right with you by listening to that, then you might be watching the wrong video. And so now you can imagine what happens when the 5% of your active mind says, hey, I want to start a business or a side hustle. And so you get all motivated and you get all worked up. But then 95% of your mind, which is your subconscious, brings up those deep-rooted beliefs and say, nope. That's never gonna work. That's just a childish dream for you. So now the motivation has left your system because 95% of your mind is quite literally working against you. And once again, you didn't move. And since you're not aware of your subconscious beliefs, you're left wondering, why the hell did this happen again? And once again, you swore that you would change your life. And once again, you didn't move. And once again, you let it fade into an echo until you forgot about it. And from my perspective, these are the exact same beliefs that cause you to cave to your clients' demands and think that you must put up with their shit. The exact same beliefs that tell you, yes, go the safe way and go to school and get a job and go up the corporate ladder are the exact same beliefs that tell you that if you already landed a one big client, $3,500 a month in this case, don't you dare lose it, and you better do as they say. So then now the question becomes, how? How do I bypass these subconscious beliefs, and how do I get to the point where I can get rid of them? And how do I make this work for me so that I can be financially free? And all of these are actually tied together. And look, I believe two things are true at once, but they actually contradict each other. So if you've been able to keep up with this video so far and you want to be financially free in the future, this applies to you, so listen up. But I'm going to get a little bit sidetracked and then I'm going to come back to the main topic. So truth number one, as I see it, is the following. If you're hanging out with people who are still living in survival mode, that affects the way that you live and operate as well. Therefore, working with people who are not in survival mode is always better. People who don't feel threatened by every little thing that happens and then they freak out. People who are actually stable. And now you must also be someone who's stable and not freak out if your client does. So getting rid of your deep-rooted biased beliefs that you never even questioned in the first place is fundamental for this. And in my case, I do this almost by meditating on my thoughts and beliefs, but not in the way that it sounds, not like cross-legged. I mean, sometimes, but that's not today's video. But for example, I do go on like very long walks and I ponder about why I believe that this is the truth. And I look at my beliefs objectively. So for example, going to college, let's say that you think it is the right thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. But again, if you feel like something's off, then let's think. Ask yourself, why do I believe that? Who told you that that was the right thing to do when you were little, which then accept it as the truth because they were an authority figure? And then let's go a level deeper than that. Well, somebody must have told them that, which then they accepted, but then somebody told that person the exact same thing. And so then you realize, hey, this might be a deeply outdated way of looking at things. So why would I take it as the truth? Or at least why would I not even question it? And so you're shifting your whole perspective on any one subject that you actually sit and ponder about, any one belief or any one opinion that you have. And the way that I like to describe this concept is in the following way. Look, this camera right now, the one that I'm recording with, is recording through a specific lens. And so it sees me in a specific way due to the focal length or the zoom. And here are a couple of more lenses. This one is attached to a camera, and then this one is sitting by itself. Each one represents the way a person looks at the world. And what you're doing with this exercise is not changing the lens by which you're seeing the world. You're actually thinking about, why do I decide to look at the world through this lens? And that's very powerful because then you can really do some critical thinking about yourself. And then you get to know yourself better. But now I digress. Truth number 2 actually contradicts everything that I've been telling you. And that is that sometimes you actually do have to put up with this kind of shit if you're trying to build a business or something long-term worth fighting for, something that can replace your income entirely. The shit that clients throw at you, their demands, their entitlement, and much else is all simply part of life. And there are numerous scenarios in which you have to and you should put up with the client's bullshit. There are so many good things that can come from it. And I'll tell you why and when you should put up with their shit. If I take you back almost a decade, I had my very first client, a real estate agent who needed social media production. And I was in charge of the exact same thing, their presence, their ads, their leads, their production of photos, videos, and graphics. It was a whole lot. And as much as I enjoyed it, payment was always a problem. The check was literally always late. I'm not sure that I got paid on time a single month, and I'm not even hyperbolizing here. It was annoying because every time that I would ask for a payment, there was always an excuse like, oh, my best friend passed away, or oh, my dad's in the hospital, or my mom, whatever. And so one understands, right? But there's only so many best friends that can pass away every time that you owe somebody money. It got so bad that there was a period of time that I went 3 months without pay and I was owed about $6,000. And I kept working with them week to week, month to month. But why did I put up with that? The underlying truth here is I simply relied on that income at that point. That $2,000 coming in every single month was my one and only source of income. I needed to put up with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't even get paid if I didn't continue to work. And looking back at it now, they needed me more than I needed them, but I had no clue at the time. So now I want to open your eyes so that this doesn't happen to you, or if it does, at least you're conscious and aware of your situation. But now here's the thing. What would have happened if I wouldn't have stayed? If I wouldn't gotten fancy and said, I'm gonna fuck off? Well, I'll tell you exactly what would have happened. I wouldn't have learned so many skills that still to this day I use. I'm talking about managing ads. I'm talking about targeting the right audiences. I'm talking about creating an offer, or at least the very basics of it back in the day, editing a video, and arguably the most important skill that I learned back then, how to nurture leads so that they buy from you later on. If I would have gotten fancy at the time when I needed the client, I wouldn't be where I am today, because that client then referred me to my next, and then that next client opened so many new doors for me, and I could have never have predicted that. And now that you know this, here's the whole conclusion of truth number 2, and that is that you get to pick when to put up with this shit. You get to decide if you want to stick around the $3,500 a month client and learn skills and hope that they open new doors for you, or you can decide that the effort and the energy is better allocated somewhere else. And you'll never know what the right answer is because you can't be in 2 timelines at once. But that's just business and that's just life. You have to make decisions and make mistakes and then look back and see if you made the right call or not. And if you didn't, well, guess what? Now you know how to confront the situation the next time that it comes around. But now the last point that I want to make is so simple, but it's not easy to apply by any means. And most people, especially the ones that have a little bit of success, whether that is a couple of clients or landing a really good paycheck, fall into without realizing. It's a huge trap and by no fault of your own. The world is actually designed in such a way that you don't even realize that you're being part of it. And when you fall into it, you don't realize that you're eating yourself alive, and that's causing you to be more stressed and more burned out and living in survival mode once again. And the last point is that I was able to not worry when $3,500 a month consistently left the table for me, simply because of the simple fact that I keep my expenses as low as possible. Only really investing into my business and not buying shit that I don't actually need. And look, it's very funny that I tell you this wearing a $4,500 watch, but I'll tell you why I bought that in just a second. But first, you must be aware that the world around you is designed for you to consume. Look, just open social media and in less than a minute, you're gonna get an ad to buy something or an ad to opt into something that's gonna offer you something to buy later on. You see your favorite celebrities wearing the new shoes, your favorite clothing, jewelry, watches, and since you put them on a pedestal, well, you simply want in on it and you aspire to be like them. And look, I'm not putting myself in a moral high ground here. Look, I love looking good, but look at the difference. There's something to be learned. It's crazy. Where somebody's spending $200 on a brand new hoodie, earning $3,000 a month, I probably won't spend more than $80. If anything, while earning 10 to 15K months. Where somebody spends $200 on the brand new pair of shoes that just dropped, earning maybe $4,000 a month, I literally will take 3 months to just think about and decide whether I want to buy a $50 pair of shoes, earning 10 to 15K months profit. While some people earn a little bit over minimum wage, they get the fancy car, they get the fancy home, they get the fancy furniture. And well, I just don't do that. I still drive my old beat up 2014 Nissan. And that is simply because I understand two things that I want you to be aware of. Number one is that most people buy these things out of insecurity, and therefore it is convenient for them that you buy into their game as well, because they already spent that money. They already bought the house, they already bought the car, they already invested into the rat race. But you, I hope that if you leave with anything watching this video is the following. The 2014 car will still get you to the same point A and point B as a brand new model. The button-up shirt that's on sale will still make you look put together as much as the $200 one that is not. And the same goes for most things. Material wealth is mostly a lie that's designed for you to keep wasting your money away. It's designed to keep you broke. It's designed to make you think that it's gonna fill the void of insecurity that you have. It's designed in such a way that it makes you compare yourself to the other person that has more of it than you. And you don't even realize that that person, the one that does have it, the one that did buy the house, did buy the shoes, did buy the clothes, sometimes they're barely getting by. So now, why do I wear a $4,500 watch while I tell you all this? Seems a little hypocritical, right? Yet another contradicting truth that I believe, but this one is simpler, I promise. Look, I believe that everybody should get to enjoy their hobbies and their success, but without spiraling out of control. Let me explain. So for example, I love watches. It's a hobby of mine. They're amazing to me. I collect them. Plus, I tie memories to my watch. So for example, this Tudor Black Bay 58, I thought about buying this watch for like 4 months before I actually pulled the trigger. And when I did, I actually went with my father so that it can be a beautiful core memory of mine that now I get to remember forever. But at the point where I'm at, would I buy a $20,000 watch or a $30,000 watch? Of course not. The fact that you can afford something doesn't mean that you should buy it. And so what I'm saying is that everything should be within reason. Everybody gets to have their hobbies or quirks, but make sure that those things are actually things that you enjoy and you're fond of. Then go ham and spend all the money that you want within reason. Make sure you're not doing it out of fear and insecurity that another person has that, therefore I must have it as well. So if you're making $150,000 to $200,000 a year while your personal expenses are as low as possible, then a $4,500 watch isn't bad at all. Matter of fact, you can actually justify it because watches like these usually hold their value. So it's almost like if you have money parked in an asset. So just to clarify, I don't believe that you should be spending money on watches and expensive clothing or a nice car when you're not earning good money yet, when you can't afford it, when you can't even save a good chunk of money every single month. Bro, at the end of the day, these are all just liabilities that are designed to keep you broke, especially if you bought them out of a deep-rooted insecurity because you keep on chasing that 5-minute high. And the saddest part is that nobody cares about what you have. What you actually have, the material wealth that you have, doesn't mean shit to anyone. Material abundance is not something that you should buy into, especially if you're just starting or you don't have the means for it. Don't stay broke trying to look rich. It doesn't work and nobody cares. With that being said, with this mentality is how I keep my expenses as low as possible and how I'm able to not live in survival mode running a one-person business, and how I got to the point where I'm at today. And sometimes I'm better off when that major source of income is not coming in. I hope that you learned something valuable, and I would truly love to hear your take on this. That being said, if you want to keep learning about perspective and personal growth, then you know what to do. Subscribe, click this video right here, and I'll catch you on the other side.